welcome back to another episode of Women's Den Community Talk. Today we have Gina again on our show, one of our favorite moderators.
Hello everybody.
And today we're going to talk about her experience with breast cancer and being a single mom and overcoming breast cancer. So at what age were you first diagnosed with breast cancer?
I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 34.
34, and Brittany was how old?
12.
12?
Brittany is at the time, it was my only child. So that's my daughter. She's now 20, will be 28.
Yeah, that must have been tough. I mean, being diagnosed with breast cancer, being a single mom. What were some of the thoughts that went through your head when you got that diagnosis?
Well, just a diagnosis of breast cancer
is cancer in general
yes, any kind of cancer is overwhelming. There's a song by Simon and Garfunkel called "The Sound of Silence," and there really is a sound of silence. So when the surgeon called to tell me that I had breast cancer, it was like you could just hear a pin drop or just my heart beating, and it was tough. Even 16 years later, it's still hard to talk about.
Yeah, I see you tearing up a little.
Oh yeah, just a little.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think it's the end of the world, but you have been so strong. You're like Gina's one of the strongest women I know.
Thank you.
She is very persistent and positive, and I love those things about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. Making me tear up a little bit there. So obviously with breast cancer or any type of cancer, your doctors would recommend treatment. What type of treatments did you go through? Like, what did they recommend for your type of breast cancer? And what type was it?
Well, I had what was called infiltrating ductal carcinoma. They call it ER-PR, so estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor positive, and I was HER2 negative. And all the medical of that, I don't know, but apparently, according to my surgeon, it was, one of the better types to have if there's a better type. And it was stage 2. And we decided to do a bilateral mastectomy because at the time, at being 34 years old, and my mother had breast cancer, and my mother's mother had breast cancer.
So there's a family history of breast cancer.
Very strong family history of breast cancer. So we just felt it would be better for me to have both my breasts removed because of my young age at the time. And I know myself, I'm a worrywart, so if I had only done a lumpectomy or just one mastectomy, I would always be worrying. So it's the decision that was right for me. And then once they did the surgery, they did what was called a sentinel lymph node, and I had cancer in one lymph node. It was 2 millimeters of cancer, but that kind of signed me up for chemotherapy. The oncologist told me that with the mastectomies, I probably would have been okay with just the mastectomies, but as extra insurance, he thought it would be good for me to get the chemotherapy too. So I did 8 rounds of chemo. 4 of them were adriamycin and cytoxin, and then I can't really remember the other one, but and then 4 rounds of Taxol. So those were my chemotherapies. I didn't have radiation because I had mastectomies, so they didn't feel I needed the radiation.
Did you feel any lumps in your breast? Is that what prompted you to go to the doctor, or were you just going under some general testing? Was it like an incidental finding?
No, I was reading a book and I had an itch and I rolled over to scratch it and I was like, oh, what's that? And I'm an ultrasound tech, so I'm familiar with breast ultrasound and lumps in the breast, so when I felt it, I kind of already had an idea that it probably was going to require some type of more testing and probably a biopsy. It didn't feel right to me. I kind of knew, I had a sense that it was going to be breast cancer. I mean, I was still hoping up to the very end, even at diagnosis, I was hoping that I was wrong. So the next day I went in and I scanned myself and I found a solid mass. So then that's when the formal testing began, the mammography, the MRI, and then
Did you have a
biopsy.
You had biopsy also?
It was a lumpectomy because I knew regardless, I just wanted it out. So I had a lumpectomy.
Right.
And then about 3 days later, my surgeon called me with the diagnosis.
Wow. So 4 rounds of chemo, right?
No,
So
8.
8 rounds of chemo. Wow.
For 2 different types.
How did you manage undergoing chemotherapy as well as being a single mom? Because with a single mom, did you have any family living close by that can help you with Brittany? How did you manage, just something, as people say it's devastating, but in your opinion, you're like, no, I got this. I can get rid of this. I'm gonna get through this. How did you manage staying in that positive mindset, dealing with such a drastic or a dramatic diagnosis and being a single mom?
Well, I think something that's kind of hard for women, single moms or women in general, is asking for help. So this is just one of those times that you have to humble yourself to your situation and ask for help, because there are a lot of people around you that are willing to give it. So why not, I think that's when I finally learned that it is okay to not have to do everything on your own. People will step up to the plate. They will, I had people that were cooking me dinner. There are people that would put it in containers for days of the week so that I wouldn't have to cook. I mean, I still did, and they didn't do that all the time, but you have to know your own limitations, and it's okay to let the dishes go one night, or not do laundry, or to say, I just am gonna rest today, and that's okay. And Brittany was a champ during that time. She was as helpful as she could be. She stayed on top of her grades because she said later to me that she didn't want me to have to stress about anything else other than what I was going through. So for me, anyway, having a good support system was key to getting through it with a positive attitude. I'm also going to say this as well, and I've said this to other people that are going through the same situation. It is okay to distance yourself from the negative people in your life. You're only going to have enough emotional energy for you and your family, or just you. There is no need to keep yourself surrounded with negative people that are going to drag you down. So, it's okay to not answer those phone calls, or, just say, I need some time, because, you're going to need all your strength to get through your situation.
Right. Because chemotherapy is almost like a poison. Almost.
It is a poison.
It is a poison, and it's basically killing good cells as well as bad cells, and
Right.
that can be very draining. Tell me about the day when you first found out that you had breast cancer and you had to sit Brittany down at the age of 12, right? Mm-hmm. And tell her and explain to her that mommy was diagnosed with breast cancer and it's going to be okay.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite unfold like that. I wish it had. My surgeon was in, sorry, you're probably crying.
No, it's okay.
Was in Paradise Valley. So I had to, thank you, I had to get that diagnosis over the phone.
Over the phone?
Over the phone, at the kitchen table. And Brittany knew that I was getting the phone call, and she came up behind me, and I'm on the phone with my surgeon, and she looks at me, and I'm like looking at her like, no, it's not good. And she dropped to the ground, and she started to cry on the floor. So I told my surgeon, I'm like, I gotta go. And I hung up the phone back when we had house phones, and I threw the phone and I dropped to the ground with her, and I grabbed her and I said, look at me. I said, look at me. I said, I am not going to die. Do you understand me? I am not going to die. And she's crying and crying, and I have her by the shoulders, and I'm like, do you understand? And she looked at me, and it was at that moment that I knew we're gonna do it. We're gonna be fine.
And you are.
We are. 16 years later, I didn't lie. I didn't lie. But she looked at me and she knew we were gonna fight this together.
You did.
I didn't think after all this time this story would affect me like this still.
I mean, it is a dramatic experience. I mean, mean, it's traumatic, dramatic. So many things go through your head when you get that diagnosis of cancer, and I could imagine or even empathize with you how that would feel. You know, it's just.
Well, you know,
when hug you.
When he first told me, when the surgeon told me, it's like everything around me just stopped. Like you have 1,000 questions. Like, what does this mean? You know, you're in the medical field, so it's like, how far did it go? Is it metastasized to anywhere else? You know, there's a million questions. But as soon as Brittany came in and I looked at her and I said, I'm not dying, that was it.
That was it.
The story was written.
You were determined.
It was just, it was going to be what it was going to be, and we were getting through it.
Yeah, you're gonna fight this, beat it, and be in remission for a very, 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 very long time. He's still strong, very strong.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with a bad diagnosis always come a good day when you hear you're in remission. Tell me about that day when you got the news that you're cancer-free. I'm here forever. Nothing's gonna happen. Brittany, you got your mom. Tell me about the day when you told her, or when you found out that you were in remission, and then you told Brittany.
Well, the thing about remission is you're really not going to really have an idea until you're about 5 years into it or so.
5 years into it, so you're still
about
testing.
that. I mean, I'm not an oncologist, but
Right.
you know, it takes a while before anybody, you know, before you know whether or not it's going to come back. But 16 years into this, my oncologist did say, you know, breast cancer is a thing in the past for you.
So was it follow-up testing after that? Like once you had your
Oh,
mastectomy,
yeah.
your chemo, tell us about the testing afterwards.
So you get little CAT scans. I would have to get every
Frequently?
6 months.
6 months?
And then after a while, after you've had some good, you know, CAT scan results, then you go to an annual. But you always have, I mean, it's just the box that you check, you know, check yes for cancer. It's always there. You're always going to be seeing your oncologist. It's not one of those things that I get to, you know, say, okay, well, it's been 16 years. I don't have to do this anymore. I'm still seeing somebody.
Right. You still have to have that ongoing testing to make sure everything is gone and clear.
And, you know, the thing about breast cancer or any cancer really is that, you know, there can always be another cancer. So
Yeah, of course.
you have to follow up.
Follow up, yeah. Yeah. What advice can you give to our community, to anyone that is going through the same situation that you have gone through, just to help them stay positive, to help them get through some tough times? What advice can you give to them? I mean,
Really, as I said before, the biggest piece of advice that I could give anybody is to surround yourself with the right people. I mean, if you're not around people that are like-minded and positive, it will get you you will go down a dark hole, a rabbit hole that, you know, that you can't get back out of.
what was your mindset going through all of this? Obviously, you needed that external push to help you stay in that positive mindset, but what did you do? Did you have mantras? Did you have affirmations? Or you just looked at Brittany and said, baby, I'm going to do this for you?
Well, that was part of it. That was part of it. But you know, they say laughter is the best medicine. And one of the things that I remember, Brittany and I kept a routine every night. So we watched The Nanny. And that was, seriously, I think our saving grace during that time. They'd have, the Golden Girls would come on first, and then The Nanny would, and we would always, every night, meet at the couch for 2 episodes of The Nanny. And then, you know, we'd go to bed. But we would, you know, have that routine, and we would laugh. So laughter really is the best medicine.
It is.
I agree.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you too, Lisa.
What's me in the video? Alright guys, thank you again for joining us on another episode of the Women's Den Community Talk with our special guest Gina Herrera, who shared a very personal story, and we love her for that. And like I said, she's a very, very strong woman and someone to really look up to.
Thank you.
Don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And don't forget to check out some of our previous videos. Until next time, thank you for watching.
Thank you.